What's up, guys? If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Also, please smash that like button on the video and enjoy the show. Well, you also predicted, at least a couple years ago, maybe a little longer, I think it was in one of your books, that in the coming years, you predicted we would see the government start to push out a lot of quote-unquote UFO material. And it would appear you're right about that. I mean, especially in the year 2023, it has been nuts how much is coming from the government.
Well, what I did say,
that?
what made me think that is the database is so big, it's going to leak out. And the best way for the government to deal with it is just come clean and just release it. Yeah. So, and that's kind of what's happened, not just in the U.S. France has released a lot of stuff. I mean, so it's almost a worldwide release phenomena. And people said, Hugh, are you going to have to revise your book? I said, all the new stuff that's been released is just like the old stuff. It's just more of it. And it's basically telling people this is not just a minor phenomena. I mean, that's what David Grusch was saying when he testified to Congress. He said, this is not a minor phenomena. It's widespread. He was right about that. He was wrong about almost everything else he said. Because David Grusch has been making claims for the past 5 years that our government is hiding actual physical craft.
Yes.
And that actually have the bodies of UFO beings. I noticed when he testified to Congress, he kind of backed away and said, no, what we have is biological tissue. And so what does that mean? But the whole point is, if our government has been hiding physical craft since 1933, there's no way that evidence would not have escaped by this time. Our government security is not up to the task. I would argue even Soviet security wouldn't be capable of hiding that much evidence from the public. You know, I've personally have seen lunar rocks brought back by the Apollo astronauts. I've not physically handled them, but I've watched a scientist just a few inches from me handling these lunar rocks. I've yet to see a single artifact from a UFO. There's nothing.
Yeah, Michu talks about that a bunch.
Yeah, I mean,
He's
lots
like,
of stories.
Steal something. Take something if you have an encounter.
Yeah. It's like the fact that there's no physical artifact that anyone can produce tells us we're not dealing with something physical.
It's a huge hole. It's
a
huge
enormous hole. Especially when you're talking 20 million documented cases. With that many cases, there should be physical evidence, and there isn't any.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, we know they're documented, but again, like a small percentage of those, I think, could have maybe happened. But, you know, I do still always go back to these beings, whatever they are, have figured out things that we haven't. And I've also said, and this one I feel a little stronger about, but to be clear, I don't really feel strong about anything in this space. This is very wide open for me. But I've also said that they could probably, like, if they're that advanced and could do some of the things that allegedly they'd have to do to come here or be here, they could probably simulate what happens ahead of time. Meaning, if someone has an actual sighting, and it's a real sighting, they did that on purpose. Like, that's not an accident. They're above accidents in our reality. They're above that. They wouldn't have, some guy on Catalina Island catch him live on a telescope when they come here, because they'd be able, hypothetically, maybe, to simulate that ahead of time. So could that also be a part of why we don't have evidence?
Well, when I heard David Grusch's testimony, it's like he was claiming that these are, physical beings from another planetary system, bringing high technology, making the claim that ancient civilizations benefit from the high technology of these beings. We already know that it's not possible to send a large spacecraft across interstellar space. One reason we know that is astronomers are actually seriously considering sending spaceships to the nearest planet outside of our solar system. It's 4.2 light years away. And therefore they're saying, okay, let's just make a fast trip, say at 1/10 or 1/5 the velocity of light, and get there and find out what's going on that planet. Well, they quickly figured out there's stuff between here and the nearest star. There's particles, there's protons, there's electrons, there's helium nuclei, there's dust. And so they quickly figured out the biggest spaceship that has any hope of getting there is 10 centimeters across. Anything bigger than that will be destroyed, because the bigger the cross-section, the more damage you get. And the faster you go, the more damage you experience. And so astronomers are actually proposing, let's send 1,000 tiny spaceships to the nearest planet outside of our solar system at 1/10 the velocity of light, knowing full well that over half the spaceships will be completely destroyed and the other half will be partly destroyed. But they'll be destroyed in different ways, and we should be able to get back some useful information. Well, what that tells us is not even a termite is going to be able to go through interstellar space. And so right away we know this claim by David Grusch that they have actual physical craft and hangars can't possibly be true. That would be a violation of the laws of physics. It's simply not possible for beings our size to traverse interstellar space. And there's no artifacts. I mean, if we actually had the craft, there'd be artifacts by now. And I do think that he was making an interesting point where he said, I believe that our government is hiding technology because these extraterrestrials have figured out how to get around the law of gravity. I think what he heard was scientists studying UFO phenomena saying we're dealing with phenomena that's not subject to the laws of physics. The best spin I can put in David Grusch's testimony is he misunderstood what the scientists were saying and basically concluding that these craft were designed to not obey the law of gravity. But it's like, hey, we've observed the entirety of the universe. The law of gravity works everywhere. You're not getting around the law of gravity. And so, but it is true that scientists have been telling our government for decades now, we're dealing with something that's not subject to the laws of physics.
Thank you for watching the video, guys. Please hit that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.